Here in Europe, again, we're privileged. We don't have these problems. We have quality and control, but think about the world. Medical drugs also. Up to 30% in some areas are prone to counterfeit. What you pay is not what you get. Now, let's think what happens if you could actually detect what's in there. And here we have a new innovation. We presented this concept a few days ago, and it was called the tricorder from Star Trek. You can see the device. It's actually really simple. It has a sensor. You take food, vegetable, fruits, meat, whatever, and it detects what's in there. So you can see, for example, how fresh your fruits are, or how much fat you have, or how much sugar. And it even works on laundry. So if you have stains, you can detect what kind of stain it is. Is it coffee or something else? It's not yet on the market, but as I said before, it's a first step. That's how we do innovation. Let's move on to a thing which is more closer to your business, construction. It's a really interesting industry. It's very, very broad and diverse. And we see also a big change in the construction industry, in the way buildings are done, as well as in the way that buildings are used. I met a guy a few days ago who, for example, said he's going to build very cheap houses by using some kind of chemicals. They just blow up the walls and then it's set up. Really interesting. So, but from a digital point of view, this industry is also getting more standardized, at least at the large construction sites. But there's still some issues, and I guess you know much better than I do what's going on there. Think about large construction sites. A lot of time and effort is wasted on searching things. It's a machine which somebody misplaced, it's a tool, it's assets, it's materials, whatever. Up to 16% of production losses goes just down on searching things. And things get lost, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes they just move away for whatever reason. Up to 10% of material loss. I see some people smiling. What do we do there? Smart construction, locate and track your assets. Again, sensors, software, and services. What you can see on this side here is a tracking device. It's something like that big, waterproof, shock resistant, so you can throw a hammer on it. And it basically has a GPS signal, so it knows its coordinates, it sends it up the cloud, and you can see where things are. You can do, for example, geofencing, so you can set up events that if that asset which you want to locate is going somewhere else, it gives you a notification. And then you have an alarm and know, oh, why is it moving? It shouldn't be moving. It should be actually in that area. And we have a similar project here at Power Tools with a small text called Track My Tools, which had a new release right now. So also, again, digital technology which is close to your fields. Buildings. Now, moving on from the construction to the end product, looking fancy, but still, it's not the end of the road. So the building itself. Up to 20–30% is actually wasted in the area of facility management. So whether it's energy or water or the way that the cleaning is done in buildings, it's just wasting resources. Again, it's the same story everywhere we see it. And for example, in office buildings, did you know that roughly half of all the office desks are unused today? And this is going to change probably in the future because people are going to work from home more and they won't use their office desks. Now, you can set up a big building, but if nobody is in there, why do you have that big buildings? You can make them smaller. And by making them smaller, you might even save energy. Who knows? So I think that also for your type of work, you need to consider that the more technology is coming in, the field where you work is going to change. And it will be really important also, I guess, for craftsmanship to also consider these kind of electronic things. You can help the people understand the technology better and also how it's being used. And for example, the last figure is we don't always have the best conditions in offices. Sometimes temperature is bad or air is bad. Again, it comes to productivity loss for the people who work there, actually. Which brings us to connected buildings, cost utilization, and comfort optimization. So what you can see here is actually a dashboard. And there are many things inside. So when you talk about a connected building, you talk about lots of different things, because there are so many things happening in a building. It's the security at the front desk. You can measure the energy output. You can have safety doors. It's also about understanding how the flow of people in a building is. For example, in retail, retailers are often concerned how do they place the products and where do people stand? Or in narrow areas when it comes, for example, to airports and where you need to have a certain degree of safety. There are now technologies which enable to count people. They don't detect your face. It's not about recognizing who's actually walking there, but how many people there are. We have a partner at Zumtobel, for example, and he's building sensors in the bulbs. So if you have intelligent bulbs and you bring them in the building and they are connected, you can detect what's going on. And then you can optimize, for example, the cleaning. So if a room is not used, you don't need to send somebody there. You don't need to waste his time. You can say, okay, these rooms were heavily used. Please go there and do it 3 times a week. And this one, yeah, next week or in 2 weeks. Mobility. We're at Bosch, and we just love cars. So we can't do a presentation without talking about cars. And apart from that, they're pretty fun. So they promise flexibility and freedom, and I hope the picture suggests it, but what you get is actually this one, at least when you live in Stuttgart. That's where we have our headquarters. And Stuttgart is also Germany's car city, I would say. We have Daimler-Benz, we have Porsche, we have Bosch, lots of people who work in the automotive supply chain, but every day you get a 2 times traffic jam. In the morning and in the evening. So for me, it's almost easier to drive up to Munich than come from my location, from my office to our corporate research. And again, a few statistics to see how big the problem is. I mean, 60 hours per year, every resident is stuck in traffic jams. That's a lot of lifetime wasted. And most of the traffic in cities is still going to somewhere else, but still 20 to 30% of inner city traffic is devoted to finding a parking place. And that, from my perspective, really sucks. You go there and you just waste time. And when you're wasting time, what do? You pollute even the air. A lot of emissions. We're still not fully electric, so we have gasoline and diesel engines. And the air quality goes down just by staying there and waiting to get in and then finding a place. So we're very keen on electric mobility, but that's not what I'm going to show now. It's more about how do we get actually people a little bit off the road. What are the means if we are in an area where streets are too crowded? And we call it connected mobility, or the more technical term is intermodal transport. These are means that we enable people to easily change from different ways of transport. So basically, again, sensors, apps, software. You have an app and you say, I want to go from here to there. That's what you get with Google Maps too, no problem. But the interesting thing about this one is it connects all the different traffic providers. You can say what is important to you. Do you want to drive by car? Do you want to save emissions? Do you want to avoid traffic jams? So you might pick a route where he says, okay, you go by car from outside to that parking right, and then you switch over to public transport. And he does the billing and everything for you, and then it routes you through the city. And you might even pick up a bike. It's a functionality which probably in the future is going to have more customers because people move away from owning cars. We have seen that at least in German cities, there are these cars which can rent. Drive Now, for example. You don't own one, you have an app and you say, I want a car, and then he shows you the map where the next car is. We can connect that so people can hop. And And this is one of the perfect examples which shows you how we also connect different industries, because we connect the driver, we connect the car, and we connect the public transport systems. And if you want to go forward, you can also connect if you want to do a booking system in the future. For example, you want to go to an event, so you do the booking, and everything is done with one click, including the tickets. Let's move out for a while out of the work condition more to life. So things which don't happen at work. We have the topic of accidents and safety critical situations. So, for example, you go with a bike and you have an accident in the woods, or you go for hiking, you have a problem, or even if you are on a large construction site and you work alone. The problem is when help doesn't get there quickly enough. You have an accident and then you have a serious problem, and that's also a really big thing. And I was surprised to hear that most accidents actually don't happen at work. So 3 times more during leisure activities, sports, for example. And it's also one of the highest causes, the most important causes for death, at least in the US. So the first 3 were basically diseases, and then come the accidents. And to give you a target number, in cities, medical aid should be there in around 10 minutes. They don't achieve it every time, but that's a good value. I mean, if you're in the woods, nobody can reach you in 10 minutes. So what to do about this one? Another approach is to basically connect not only professional aid, but also a community. So if you have an app and it detects where you are, it has your location, and if something happens, you can, for example, say, oh, I have a problem. It gets you connected to the professional agency, but it also looks for people who are close to you, so you get first aid easier and faster than waiting for a doctor. This is the Vivata, which is done in one of our divisions. And consider that for your work. Maybe it applies to you. If you're alone somewhere, why not having an additional safety system, just in case something happens? So what do you want to be? Just to wrap up the examples. There are more examples than that, and just wanted to give an overview. Our target is actually to connect 100% of all of our products, the full product portfolio, whatever it is. It could be vehicles, in the smart home area, power tools, boilers, specific machines like packaging systems. And the idea is always the same. You make the product more intelligent. It's not only about the hardware. It's not only about how much power you get out of a system and what the battery span is. It's also about the full service which is around this one. What kind of process is being used with that machine, and how can we make that better or improve it in certain conditions? And I believe we're still at the beginning. Think about the first applications in the internet. The web pages were ugly, and in the beginning not many people used it, but it's always the first step, you know. Every journey starts with the first step, and you saw some of the first steps. Now think about the change, what happened in the last 10 years, the way it changed your life with the smartphone. You pay online with the smartphone, you look for stuff to buy on Amazon. It completely changed, right? Now think what happens when the things start to speak to you and to each other, what's actually possible, and how much more change is going to bring into all kinds of situations. Which brings me to the way we actually work today and in the future, the way we collaborate. This image should resemble an ecosystem with lots of things and lots of animals. And I think that's pretty close to where we are actually heading from a business perspective. In the past, as a company, and we always thought we were kind of alone. We are there, there's supplier, and there's competition. This changes. We're moving away from individual companies towards open ecosystems. It's a little bit of a buzzword, but at the same time, there's a certain truth to it, because think about the agriculture example. I mean, it's not us alone having a sensor in the field. We connect to weather services, which somebody else provides, and we connect to maybe fertilizer databases, which come from somebody else, right? So the value which we bring with our products and services is not based on our own stuff, it's on the combination of things and services which are around us. And the second thing is, where do those ideas come from? As initially said, we have a huge budget for R&D, and our people are creative, but that's not where innovation is only. The innovation is also in your heads. So ideas are basically everywhere, and especially if we think about services. A service is always around the process, so how is something is being used, how you do steps, and what don't you do, what is missing. And so we think about ideas are basically everywhere, especially with our customers. And this changes basically then your role. So in the past, you could say, oh, we have customers. But is it only a customer, or is it the co-creator? So they can bring their ideas and say, oh, your tools are fine, but I have maybe a totally different issue. Maybe you can help me with that. And well, let's take a look at this. Which then brings me actually to the conclusion of this presentation. The question to you is, how can we help you better? How can we improve your work? Let us know. So for the guys on Facebook, please keep your ideas posted, and if you have any questions, thanks for listening.
Thank you very, very much, Director of Internet of Things and Smart City, Mark Müller.
Thanks.
Wow, you really made us overthink a lot of things, so thank you very much for that presentation. What we're going to do next is, I think, should I say now goodbye for this time to Facebook? Whatever, you do it by yourself. I'm just standing over here just to tell you, if you do have questions, Mark and Ralf will be later right over there.